Hello and welcome. Few ministers have ever been as qualified to chair a WTO Ministerial Conference as Amina Mohamed. A distinguished career diplomat, CS Amina has spent 3 decades of service to Kenya, and she has chaired nearly every important body in the World Trade Organization. She's chaired the Dispute Settlement Body, she's chaired the Trade Policy Review Body, and in 2005, she became the first woman to chair the WTO's General Council. Following her term in Geneva, she returned to Nairobi, where she worked on a range of issues, including justice, the economy, and constitutional affairs. In 2011, she was named the United Nations Environment Programme's Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director. And in 2013, Amina Mohamed was appointed Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Trade. In May of this year, the WTO's General Council selected her as the chair for the 2015 Ministerial Conference to be held in Nairobi, December 15th through 18th. CS Amina, it's a great pleasure to have you with us.
I'm delighted to be here.
Let's start with an obvious question, one I'm sure you've received before, which is, what does it mean for Kenya to host a ministerial conference of the WTO, and perhaps what does it mean for Africa more broadly?
Well, I think it tells Africa's story. From what was described as a hopeless continent to the descriptions that you hear everywhere today. Africa rising, the continent of the 21st century, the hotbed of innovation and entrepreneurship. And as for Kenya, we are also the hotbed of champions. The question that I keep waiting for is, why not Kenya? Where else should this be taking place at this time in the history of the WTO? Just look at the number of African members you have in the organization. So the story we want to tell is the story of hope, of expectation. The story of a journey that began a long time ago, and ending up with Africa hosting, the first ever ministerial conference, right? At a time of a continent that is on the move, that is forward-looking, that's doing amazing things. I was just talking to somebody about the responses I was getting to being in Geneva from my followers on Twitter. And I promise you, Keith, you don't have as many followers as I do.
I know that.
and it's simple. It's because we have a very youthful population that's very active on social media and any other media, and that is very, very connected to what is happening around the world, and that is extremely excited about hosting the MC10 in Nairobi.
All eyes will be on Nairobi. What do you expect will emerge as an outcome from this ministerial conference? It's a bit early still, but what do you see as a possible outcome from this set of negotiations?
What we're hoping to achieve, like you said, this is a member-driven organization. The members have just now begun to engage intensively. What we are looking for is a comprehensive package coming out of Geneva, one that will hopefully be satisfactory to all the different categories of members. It has to be a package that will renew the relevance of the organization to its members. It has to be a package that tells a totally different story, from the old one. It has to be a package that's looking to the future, and that has obviously a lot of the issues that we've been discussing, right, over the last 15 years, but also issues that look to our future, issues that will tell the story of where we want to go. What is the next stop now that we've all jumped on this train, which has been traveling for a while, right? We are in Nairobi. This is what we have, what we have from the past. What do we have for the future? So you know, the expectation is that it will be comprehensive enough, right, and sensitive enough, right, to satisfy the expectations of the vast, majority of the members of this organization, but also that will appeal to the youth of Africa. You know, a youth that I was talking about yesterday that has huge numbers, right? The drive, the expectation that is at the right place in a continent that is actually growing and that has been growing at 5.6% since 2000, right? You know, it has to be the story of MC10 must be a story that appeals, you know, to that group of people across the world.
It's a very important meeting for Africa, for Kenya. You know this organization very well. How important is this ministerial conference for the WTO itself?
Oh, critically important. Critically important. It has to tell the WTO story, right?
What is the WTO story?
Well, it's the story of openness, of liberalization, of progress, of growth, and that is the story that must be told. It cannot be a story of starts and stops, right? It must be a story of forward movement all the time. It's about progress. We cannot continue to interfere, right, with our movement forward. We must be thinking of putting in place systems that will support our expectations into the future. You know, so that's how I see it. Actually, I see it as a ministerial that will renew the WTO, will make it more relevant, will modernize it, and will assure the rest of us, you know, that we are on the right track, in the right organization, at the right time, and hosting it at the right venue.
You have said that one of the things you'd like to see happen there would be a ratification of the trade facilitation agreement. Now, we've been a little slow, but we're picking up speed. We should have some very good news in the coming days and weeks. How important is trade facilitation for Kenya, for Africa? Why does this issue mean so much to you and to your fellow Africans?
Look, you can't really talk about trade and participating in the multilateral trading system unless you have the right soft and hard infrastructure in place, unless you're able to communicate with the rest of the world seamlessly, and you're able to transport products across borders much more easily and efficiently than we do today. It's about being competitive, right? It's about being effective, efficient. It's about ensuring that, in fact, trade, works for you. It's about bringing down the cost of doing business, right? And it's about harmonizing our procedures, right, with the rest of the world, so that if you want to fill a customs form, you are not looking at 10 different types and categories of forms. And it's at the end of the day, actually, it's about where we are at, right, in the world today. I mean, we're all quite digital, and especially on our continent where you have, young people. They don't have the patience of going through hundreds and thousands of pages of customs, forms. They want to go online, fill their forms online, at the click of a button, have it, arrive in Baltimore, right? Where it can then be checked, and with another click of the button, it gets a response back, right? So really, it's just about, of course, efficiency, but also just saving time. Saving time so that you can get it done. Bring down the cost. You heard the stories, horror stories of, the transportation of goods costing much more, right, between, African cities or Asian cities than the transportation cost actually is between the US and Africa. right?
Yeah.
So things like that have become irritants. They've become barriers to forward movement, barriers to economic growth, barriers to development. Made it very, very difficult for countries to move from where they are to the next level. So it's just things like that we need to to deal with, and trade facilitation does that for us.
So you've been very busy in the WTO context, obviously, but you're busy in many other ways as well, including in a Pan-African context. You've been working hard on the tripartite negotiations, bringing together 3 separate trading agreements. And then there's the continental FTA as well. How do those negotiations interrelate with the multilateral trading system, and what benefits can they bring for Africa?
Well, for Africa, a lot of benefits. Like you already know, these are 3 different regimes, right? The SADC has a different regime from the ESC, from COMESA. COMESA is slightly different from the ESC. In some cases, SADC is a little bit ahead of the ESC, and in other areas, we are far ahead of any of the others. And so it's just time to harmonize all these regimes and have one proper regime that would allow our private sector, our businesses, to move from one country to another. Without having to deal with all these, different rules, regulations, and the 3 different regimes. So that's why we've been active on the continent. So we have the tripartite, and we're working very, very hard to make sure that takes off. We've also agreed on the continental free trade area, and it's really for the same reason. In any case, it's something that we plan to do from the beginning. You have the Lagos Plan of Action. And in there we said, okay, let's start with the smaller building blocks, right? Get people used to, this type of regimes, and then slowly use that as building blocks to address then the continental issues of of setting up of the free trade area. And I think we've been successful at that. We intend to finish the Continental Free Trade Area negotiations in 2017. Not cast in stone, but it's a good deadline to keep us all focused, right? And on the straight and narrow.
Deadlines.
Yeah, and if we are able, and that I think is the dream of Africa's private sector, Africa's young people, the youth, Africa's women in business, if we can actually manage to have one clear, transparent regime across the continent, I don't even think you can imagine what that will do for us, right? Even with all the difficulties we have, we've been growing at 5.6%, right? The only region in the world that has been growing that fast. With simpler regimes, trading regimes, with the proper infrastructure, both soft and hard, with our people actually managing to talk to each other, our systems talking to each other, I think we would be the ones pulling the world out of any difficulties, economically that we could get into. Africa is huge. Its population is big. Its land mass is quite big. You can probably put everybody else in there.
The sky is the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot, and again, a lot of area for growth, because Africa is not as built up, as constructed, right? So there are a lot of green fields that can be exploited, right, by everybody. We don't have as much experience and capacity as the rest of the world does, and obviously we'll have to do this all together. We would have to build Africa, develop Africa, together with all our partners.
There's a lot to do and not much time in which to do it. But let's hope that these coming weeks help us to achieve all of those goals that you've outlined for us. Thanks to you, Amina Mohamed, and thanks to you for watching.
Thank you.